good to be here, and I thank you very much, Peter. Um, and let's see who else is here. Jeff, it's good to see you. I think we've got somebody else. Joseph, thank you. Thomas, thank you. Sam, I've known for years. If it wasn't for Sam, I wouldn't be as active as I am in SABR. And Karen's here, and Karen, I think, has watched pretty much every presentation that I've made. I'm going to do some things a little bit different tonight. We'll start off kind of the same, but I'll do things a little bit different. So I'm going to talk to you tonight about the attorneys in the Baseball Hall of Fame. I'm going to mention all of them, but what I'm going to try to drill down on tonight is not anything I've really drilled down on before. We're going to talk about the law school experience and where they came from, and how comparing their going to law school when they went compared to people going to law school today, and how their studies truly influence them, and how the ability to study and persevere parallels the abilities that one needs to succeed in baseball, whether you're a manager, whether you're a player, whether you're an executive, or a commissioner. So just a quick disclosure that my material is copyrighted. And in addition to some of the material that I'm using tonight comes from the Mississippi Sports Law Review article that was recently published by Professor William W. Berry at the University of Mississippi, called Play Ball Lawyers in the Hall. It was a critique of our book. And a little bit about myself. I've been a longtime member of the South Florida chapter. As I said, if it wasn't for Sam and Barbara, they kind of took me under their wing 12 or more years ago, and encouraged me to participate and to write. And if it wasn't for those two, I would not be the way I am active today. Sam is our former chapter chair, along with his wife, Barbara. In 2017, I received myself and Bob Jarvis received the Baseball Research Award from SABR. I'll show you the book. It's still published. You can still get it. I don't know if you can see it, but it's here. And it's called Baseball and the Law, Cases and Materials. And it's published by Carolina Academic Press. There are copies available, and you can get it on Kindle as well. Within the last 6 or 7 months, Bob and I, along with 8 other law professors and law librarians, everybody with a legal degree, we published this book through McFarland called Attorneys in the Baseball Hall of Fame, a collection of biographical essays. In addition to that, I'm an adjunct law professor at the Mitchell Hamlin School of Law. I'm a senior county court judge in the state of Florida. I served for 28 years as a trial court judge, a county court trial court judge in Broward County. My interest is the intersection of baseball and law. Although I do other things, I'm a volunteer basketball referee. For 10 years, I was a high school basketball referee. I played trumpet in the Fort Lauderdale Symphonic Winds. So I have a lot of outside interests. I like to travel. And one of the things I was talking about to Karen and to Peter before everybody went on about trying to check off as many as the different ballparks. I'm a little bit more than halfway through. So I'm hopeful in the next few years I'll complete the list. Why does research matter? And I'm going to explain why I think research matters, because our group, SABR, we don't reinvent things. We discover new things because of the thousands of members that we have, and all of us having little different interests in things. We are able to pull together so much information. And as an example, if any of you are interested, I was contacted about a week or so ago by Bill Nowlin. We're going to put together a 25th anniversary book on the Marlins winning the 2003 World Series. We're looking for writers, we're looking for editors, things of that nature. So if you're interested, let Bill know, or you can let me know. My address is in the SABR directory, or I'll give you my email address at the end. And Harry Truman said that the only thing new in a world is the history that you don't know. And what I love about SABR is that when I get my journal, I don't read every article. Maybe some of you do, but I'll be honest, I don't read every article, but I read articles that truly interest me. And I know that I learned so much. And I go, wow, I never knew that. I never knew that. And I think that's one of the things that we like as SABR members, because most of the folks that maybe watch baseball, they look at a box score. We go way beyond a box score. We want to know why. We want to know how. And not too long ago, I was watching an interview with Ken Burns, who you all know did the baseball on PBS. He was being interviewed, and he said that doing good history means that it may not turn out like you know it did. So I think it's important that whatever area you're interested in research, that you go back and do more research. And, as SABR members, I drank the Kool-Aid. You get so many free research tools that are available to us as members, and you really should take advantage of them. I know that in Sam, in the writing of Sam, you've written 3 books, maybe 4 books. I think he's going on his 5th book with Barbara. And many of you have written SABR articles. The research that we can do now is just incredible. Now, every day, just for a little bit of information, Bob Jarvis and I, we have our baseball and law pages. We're on X, and we're also on Blue Sky. Every day we post some interesting baseball and law kind of tangent article. Sometimes it's a social commentary, but it's interesting, I think. Today I happened to mention. Well, I'll let you go look, and you can take a look. We about a year or so ago, our readers voted on the greatest organist in baseball, and you can go online today, and I have a little clip about who the best current organist in baseball is. So this is a special program that I put together for you. This is a lot of this material has never been presented before, and it's for the Baltimore Babe Ruth chapter. And if you don't know it, that's your logo. I found that online as well. I think that's from your Facebook page, Peter. And that's that. So let's go ahead and start. I'm going to run through the lawyers. This is a copy of the book, and just a couple of things. I will plug the book quickly. These are some of the quotes about the book. From the Mississippi Sports Law Review, the stories in this book are worth telling. The book is a must read. For the American Bar Association Journal says it's a fascinating and timely tales for baseball fans and lawyers alike. They were impressed with the extent of our research. The Maryland Bar Journal. I don't know if any of you, being that this is Maryland, are members of the Maryland Bar, but in the Maryland Bar, they said it was insightful biographical essays. They liked it an awful lot. Many of you might be fans of Craig Calcaterra's Cup of Coffee. He actually wrote our first review saying, it's a longer review, but a couple of nice things, entertaining and enlightening, and definitely a must-have. For those of you who read SB Nation, they said you'll find this to be a good read. And perhaps one of the nicest things that have been said comes directly from Baseball Almanac, who has a page now dedicated to attorneys in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And they talk about the book by saying a fascinating and often overlooked intersection between jurisprudence and baseball history. So those are what other people have said about the book now that it's been out 7 months or so. So let's talk about who the members are. And we will. There are 3 people in the Hall of Fame that are attorneys that were primarily players. There are 2 members of the Hall of Fame who are attorneys that were primarily managers, 3 executives, 3 commissioners. 8 of them were born before 1900, and 3 of them were born after 1900, with only 1 member of the Baseball Hall of Fame who's an attorney that is still alive. So let's go through the members. I'm going to give them to you in the order in which they were inducted. And it looks like the rain is letting up a little bit. The first person inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame that was an attorney was Kennesaw Mountain Landis. A little background on him, and we'll talk more about him later. He graduated the Northwestern University School of Law. Believe it or not, he became an attorney long before he graduated Northwestern, because back in his day, all he needed was a to swear that he was of good character and have other people back him up on it. And so as a result of that, he was admitted to the bar before he ever went to law school. The reason he went to law school was because he quickly realized that he couldn't make a living as a lawyer because he didn't know what he was doing. And he is the only member of the Baseball Hall of Fame who's an attorney that ever was a judge. And if you read the book, Bob Jarvis and I wrote the chapter on him, and I've been very happy with what folks have said. This is not, I'm putting you on Mount Rushmore type of an essay. We talk about him, warts and all. So we go into some of the bad things that he did, and we'll talk. Today's not to talk about that. Today's to talk about some other things, but that's Kennesaw Mountain Landis. He was the first person inducted into the Hall of Fame that was an attorney. And right after Kennesaw Mountain Landis was Huey Jennings. Now, what's interesting about Huey, he was a shortstop for your Baltimore Orioles, the original brand of Baltimore Orioles. But he was probably a better lawyer than he ever was a baseball player. Okay. So you're going to say, but he's in the Hall of Fame as a baseball player. Yes, he is. But if there was a Hall of Fame for lawyers, he would be in it as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about him. He practiced in 2 states. Next up is Jim O'Rourke. He was the 3rd member inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame that was an attorney. He's famous for recording the first hit in National League history. He played professional baseball until he was 54. And just like some other lawyers, he also was probably a better lawyer than he was a ball player, although he's in the Hall of Fame for being a great ball player. He went to an Ivy League school, Yale. Graduated there, and he practiced in Connecticut for a long time. And we'll talk in a little bit about how he started law school in his mid-30s. So he didn't go a traditional route. Also is Hug Huggins, who was and this is a picture of him in his graduating class from the University of Cincinnati. That's his picture from the University of Cincinnati, and as you know, the successful manager of the New York Yankees. Now, the interesting about him, he never practiced law at all. He went to law school because his father said, you have to go to law school. And so he went to law school. He was admitted to practice. He got involved in a little bit of politics. That's why I mentioned his political party. But he, as you probably know, I don't have to tell you this, that he guided the Yankees to 6 pennants and 3 World Series. And John Montgomery Ward, I had a conversation with somebody. I was in Arkansas the other day, and they asked me who I thought the greatest 2-way player was. And I said, it would be John Montgomery Ward. Now, I said that we have never seen any videos of him playing, but when you consider what he had to do back then, I'm not saying that Ohtani can't be the greatest 2-way player or Babe Ruth, but in my mind, and that he is the greatest 2-way player in the history of baseball. But that's my opinion, and I could be wrong. I'm married for 42 years, and if you've been married as long as I have, you know that sometimes you're wrong, even if you're right. So, and I've been elected in my own house comeback husband of the year 7 times in the last 42 years. What's interesting about John Montgomery Ward, yeah, he went to an Ivy League school, Columbia. The reason why he went to law school, he never really thought about it until he got traded from the Providence Grays to the Gothams. And he thought it was wrong. So he wanted to become a lawyer. And so as a result of getting traded, from Rhode Island, having to go to New York, that's when he went to law school. And I put it down that they almost wanted to run him for a judge in Mineola, New York. If any of you are from New York or know anything about New York, he was considered to be a candidate to run for judge at one point, but because he didn't really have enough ties, the Republican Party went with somebody else. Branch Rickey. I don't think you could make a list of great baseball people without including Branch Rickey. I would put him, again, this is me, I would put him on the Mount Rushmore of attorneys in the Hall of Fame. And I would put him, if there was only one attorney to be on the Mount Rushmore of attorneys in the Hall of Fame, it would be, in fact, Branch Rickey. Again, that's my opinion, but that's it. He went to the University of Michigan, and he practiced for a very limited time in Idaho. And people say, well, why did he go to Idaho? Real funny story about that. He had some law school buddies of his, and they were at some sort of alumni event right after they graduated, and they thought that Idaho would be a great place to practice because they thought that there was going to be a lot of opportunities, and they liked the climate. The partnership lasted about a year, and that was the end of his legal career. And I guess baseball is a lot better because he ended his legal career quickly. Another member of the Baseball Hall of Fame is Larry McPhail Sr. His grandson right now is working for the Minnesota Twins. For any of you folks that are American League or Twins fan, his grandson is now working for the Twins, and they're in the promotion office. He's learning his way in, another McPhail in the baseball family. He also went to the University of Michigan, but he didn't graduate from there. He wound up going to GW in Washington, D.C., and McPhail is credited with a lot of innovations, including night baseball. He may be best known for the McPhail Report, where he urged that segregation in baseball remain. And then we come to Happy Chandler. Happy Chandler was kind of a compromise candidate for baseball commissioner, probably the most political of all the baseball commissioners. He started out, believe it or not, at Harvard Law School, but he missed home. So he went back home and he graduated from the University of Kentucky, where he rose in politics from being a lieutenant governor to being governor to becoming a U.S. senator. And he had a couple of failed shots running for president. Towards the end of his life, he made a couple of missteps, and it's in the book about some things that he said that were not politically correct or proper. And of course, I list his political party because at the time he ran and he was a Democrat. Bowie Kuhn. Bowie Kuhn, as is written in the chapter, the author says that he never was on the right side of any baseball decision. You'll see if you read the chapter all the mistakes that he made. He graduated from the University of Virginia School of Law, which is one of the nation's most prestigious law schools. One of his downside was him fighting Melissa Lutke, who's a dear friend of mine. And if you haven't had her as a guest yet, Peter, I am sure that she would welcome the opportunity to come and speak to the group about her experiences and her recently published book from Rutgers University Press called Locker Room Talk. Bowie Kuhn filed bankruptcy at the end of his life, wound up living the rest of his life in Florida, and kind of evaporated. And then there's Francis, Walter O'Malley, a shrewd businessman, and we'll talk about him in a while. Graduated from Fordham in New York City. He's responsible for the folks out in LA loving the Dodgers, and for the folks that are still around hating the Dodgers, who were in Brooklyn. And he, there's another great book out there by the gentleman by the name of Eric Nussbaum. He wrote it about 5 years ago. It's called Stealing Home. And it's the story about how the Dodgers stole the land from the Mexican Americans, where now Dodger Stadium is. It's really worth a read. It's an excellent book. And then the last member of the Baseball Hall of Fame, that's an attorney who is still alive, is Tony La Russa. And I had the pleasure of writing this chapter. He's a remarkable man. Tony is now in his mid-80s, sharp as a tack. Tony went to law school later in life as well. He started out as a bonus baby right out of Tampa High School. He was expected to, if anybody had a guess at the time he was getting out of high school, that he would get to the Hall of Fame by a baseball bat. He practiced law for no time in Florida, although he was a member of the bar for 15 years. He gives direct credit to his law degree, but for law school, we'll talk about this also in a couple of minutes, but for law school, Tony La Russa would not be a Hall of Fame manager. His career would have ended in 1975, 76, after the Braves let him go, after he realized he wasn't going to go anywhere. And he may have just wound up doing some other things, but he credits his legal degree to the direct result of him being the kind of manager that he is. So that's the groundwork of the 11 members that are in the Hall of Fame right now that were attorneys. So let's talk about that. Some of these men had absolutely no path to becoming an attorney. All right. This is important because let me just move this. Here we go. Move everybody's face. So let me tell you about some of the men and what they came from to do what they did. And we'll start with Jennings and work our all the way through La Russa. Jennings, as an 11-year-old boy, was called a breaker boy. And a breaker boy separated rocks from coal for 15 cents a day. He got that job because of his father. His father was working in the coal mines as well. So I guess if his father was a lawyer, his father might have helped him become an attorney. But that was not the path for the Jennings family. He started out in absolute poverty and somehow lifted himself up in such a way that he became the outstanding lawyer that he was. And Jim O'Rourke, believe it or not, his parents were illiterate immigrants who came here, and when they got a mortgage, when they were fortunate enough to get a mortgage, they signed their mortgage with an X. Right? Again, an improbable path to becoming an attorney, just an improbable task. And now Huggins, he grew up in the poorest neighborhood in Cincinnati, and he put himself through law school without asking his parents for a cent. So, yes, he was a great mind as a manager, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But imagine growing up in the poorest section of a city and winding up not only getting through law school, but getting through law school and then becoming the Hall of Fame manager. All right. And then Chandler, his mother abandoned the family when he was 4 years old. Can you imagine that? By the time he was 7, he was supporting himself through odd jobs. And Bowie Kuhn, although he grew up with a little bit of money in his family, he worked summers at Griffin Stadium as a scoreboard boy. Those were the boys that would change the numbers in the outfield. And he worked there for $1 a game. And he worked out all the way out in the outfield, where in the right center field wall. And then the last person is Tony La Russa. Now, what I didn't put here is Tony's mom and dad met working at a cigar factory in Tampa at the time. But his father, after Tony was born, grew up driving a dairy truck. And the first language that Tony learned was Spanish. So these are at least 5 of these gentlemen had absolutely, if you would have said when they were born, are they going to be attorneys? In today's standards, unfortunately, the answer might be no. And in those standards, the answer was probably no, too. But in spite of that, they had something that other people didn't have, which was the will and the determination to succeed. And there's a long and winding road to becoming an attorney. And for those of you who are lawyers or doctors or any sort of professional degree, or have family members that are have professional degrees or 4-year college degrees, we know right now that there's a direct route to the bar, and there's a direct route to certain degrees. It's standardized college, law school, bar exam, and you have to do it in a certain amount of time. But some of them didn't do it that way. Jennings, he never finished law school. Back in the 1800s, early 1900s, you didn't have to go to law school, was the case with Landis. You just didn't have to go. Some of them didn't have to go. Some of them didn't even have to finish. O'Rourke. Now, here's the interesting thing about O'Rourke. I told you we talk about him. He's in the middle of his professional baseball career, and he's looking around and he goes, I got to figure out what to do after baseball. So at age 35, he starts commuting by train 6 days a week while still playing. So he's commuting from his home in Bridgeport over to Yale University by train 6 days a week. It's a 40-mile round trip, but still 10 hours a day going to school, commuting, and he was off during part of the year, but still he was a ball player, but he was also an attorney. Now, we talk about John Montgomery Ward, who, as you all know, he was the founder of the first union for baseball players. But how many of you know that he was expelled from boarding school when he was a youngster because he stole a farmer's chickens as a prank, and they threw him out of boarding school? And so after that, without it not knowing what to do, he became a traveling salesman trying to sell flowers, and that flopped. And then his baseball skills took him to the Providence Grays, and then the trade from the Grays to the Gothams took him to law school. But for those events, we don't have him as an attorney. And then Huggins and LaRussa, they went from playing professional baseball and attending law school on split-year schedules. This is something that's just not even allowed today. And in LaRussa's case, Florida had a quarter system. He went 2 quarters, and then he took 2 quarters off. And I had the opportunity not only speak to Tony, but one of his law school professors, a gentleman by the name of Earhart, Professor Earhart, Charles Earhart, and another friend of his that was a classmate of his. At the time, he was actually leaving school before the semester was over. The professors would let him take the exams early. He didn't even attend his law school graduation. He left law school just to start baseball one year. And so LaRussa is the most, I guess, the best example. But for his legal degree, he doesn't get hired as a manager. And I had the opportunity, and if you read the book, you'll see, I had the opportunity to speak to Michael Veck. Bill Veck's son. Bill Veck gave him his first baseball contract as a manager. And many people say the story is the reason why Bill Veck hired him is he got LaRussa very inexpensively. Mike tells me money had nothing to do with it. His father hired him because of his intellect. That's what intrigued him to hire him as a lawyer, as an attorney. He wanted an attorney there. And Tony himself told me that his law degree, but for his law degree, we don't know what his managerial career would have been, because he learned to be a manager through the eyes of being a lawyer. So the lesson that we can learn from this is that an origin doesn't really foreclose their success. And the other thing is, the formal gatekeeping of modern legal education would have screened out many of the people that are in the Hall of Fame as attorneys, and it would have altered the game of baseball. So let's talk about the next area, about preparation. And for those who are any occupation, preparation is the key, is the absolute key to success. And without preparation, you're not going to amount to a lot, whether it's in your family work or in your job or whatever you do. If you're not prepared, there's going to be failure. So Branch Rickey carries a full course workload at Michigan while he's coaching the varsity baseball team. This is what people are balancing. O'Rourke, as I mentioned before, he's 10 hours a day at Yale. All right, he's commuting by train 6 days a week. John Montgomery Ward, he goes back to law school. How many of you know that John Montgomery Ward has a degree in philosophy as well? All right. So during his baseball career, Ward goes back to law school, or goes to law school, gets his degrees while playing shortstop and pitching. He organizes the first players union, and he winds up also writing the first serious history of baseball. And LaRussa, of course, he never gets to the Hall of Fame if he wasn't an attorney. That's a direct thing. And the same with Huggins, too. Huggins told his father that I'm never going to practice law. I really want to use my law degree for something else. And none of these men treated either career as a hobby. They truly treated each career as a career. And so this relentless preparation, and I give a few examples. Rickey coached the way he studied law. He did it tactfully, with evening lectures and limited scrimmage time, he breaking down into components the way a casebook breaks down into elements. LaRussa, as I told you, he told me, and he said it in his books too. He's written a few books. He taught him preparation and attention to detail win cases in the same way true of baseball games. He did a lecture recently, the Baseball Hall of Fame. After the book was published, I saw that there was a interview he did with somebody in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and you can get it online, where he said he broke down every game into 18 components. He managed every half inning just like that, one pitch, one batter at a time. And Huggins, while he was at the University of Cincinnati, the dean told him that his baseball arguments were more interesting than his legal arguments, and that the craft of argument was the same in both arenas as far as Huggins was concerned. A few other things. Well, why law? Okay, we've mentioned this, but I'll go over it again. Huggins' father chose law for his son because, as Huggins said later in life, quote, the boy could not stop arguing. LaRussa was asked what kind of lawyer he would have been. I asked him, so, assuming that you never managed, what would you have done? He didn't hesitate, and he told me a trial lawyer because the courtroom is competition. I heard from one of his classmates that he was a very competitive student, older than basically everybody in his class. O'Rourke had the nickname of Orator Jim because he never stopped advocating with umpires, with ownership, and eventually with opposing counsel. Ward, as you know, he founded the Players League to break the reserve clause. He wasn't successful, but he chipped away at it. And when he retired from baseball, he represented railroads on Wall Street with the same ferocity that he had once directed at team owners. In fact, some teams also hired him to be their attorneys. And Landis himself, he built his entire career on confrontation, beginning with his $29 million fine against Standard Oil and his stare down with Congress over his dual role as a judge and commissioner. If you read in the book, you'll see he truly lost that standoff with Congress, and he stepped aside as commissioner of baseball. Lessons learned. Bowie Kuhn, many of you probably are not aware of this, but he picked the law firm that he wanted to work for because they were representing the National League. And he did represent the National League in Wisconsin, advocating for the right to move the Braves to Atlanta. And one little side note is that a young Bowie Kuhn cross-examined a young Bud Selig during that trial. Bud was on the opposite side of Bowie at the time. Walter O'Malley approached every business decision as if he was a litigator, reconstructing the transaction. And it was because of his business acumen that he was able to move the Dodgers out of Brooklyn to L.A. Because of the fact that he did it with preparation and that of a great litigator. And these are skills that he learned while he was in law school. Of course, Branch Rickey, he used his law degree of corporate law to understand and build what we now know as the minor league system, as we now know it, because he then was able to say, well, we're going to make these other minor league teams part of us. And so he formed the basis of these other teams. And Jennings, this is a funny story. Believe it or not, Jennings was hit by more pitches than anybody else in the history of baseball, and that record still stands. And I have to tell you this, as a trial lawyer, he was just as aggressive. He and his brother at one point defended murder cases and once used the double jeopardy argument so aggressive that the judge chastised them for doing it. But nevertheless, Jennings still won the case. And basically, he was willing to get hit just as hard by lawyers and judges in order to win a game. So they competed on the field for a living. They competed for a living in the courtroom. The venue may have been different, but their instincts was all the same. Just as some examples, O'Rourke walked through a blizzard to help a client who couldn't pay. His family, he died not too long after that, his family believes that he got pneumonia as a result of him walking through that blizzard, and he never recovered. Jennings listed lawyer on his wedding license because that is what he believed himself to be. And as you all know, that Ricky used the rigor of his legal education to dismantle the color line. Chandler supported integration when the easy way around it would have been to maintain the course and be silent. And what that teaches us is that the legal profession, like baseball, has produced some real genuine heroes. And attorneys in the Hall of Fame didn't treat the profession as just a credential. They really treated it as a calling. So I'll conclude with this. This is a quote from the Mississippi Sports Law Review by Professor Berry. The qualities that produce greatness on the diamond are the same qualities that produce greatness in the courtroom, the same preparation, the same discipline, and the same refusal to quit. So this is my information if you'd like to contact me. And if you need a phone number or something, I'm not going to put it out here because I know this is going to go up on the World Wide Web. But Peter has my phone number. You can get with Peter, and I know that Peter would be, more than happy to give you my phone number. So let me go ahead and take this down, hit stop share, and see if anybody has any questions.
Go ahead, guys. Raise your hand or put one in the chat.
It's a small enough group you can talk.
I just wanted to recommend everybody here that if you get a chance, please read either one of Lou's books, Baseball and the Law, or this latest book. One of the great things and what I love about Lou's writing is he captures the personality of the person in what he writes. You don't always get that in all the baseball books. And he has a lot of human interest stories. And I know we get in SABR, there's a lot of statistics, and I think they have their place. But I think what really grabs people's attention are we saw tonight so many of the human interest stories, like the gentleman that was it O'Rourke that walked through the blizzard to help somebody that couldn't pay for their legal bill. So no, I've just known Lou a long time. I love his books, and I would hope that you all take the opportunity to read them and enjoy them as much as I have.
Thank you,
Oh,
Sam.
Lou, question. Are there
Yes, sir.
anybody currently in baseball that's seeking a law degree or anybody that's working in a front office down the road that would be a candidate for the Hall of Fame?
It's a good question. I think the obvious one right now is Manfred. As commissioner, he'll be stepping down in a couple of years, and he could be eligible. The former Oriole owner was an attorney. He passed away about a year ago, not even. So he might be considered as a member of the Hall of Fame. Ball players don't get degrees in law anymore because of the salary that the ball players earn. So a young lawyer getting out of law school, if you're on the top of your class and you go to work for a big firm in Chicago or New York or LA, you might make $250,000, $300,000 a year. That's after 7 years of law school. A ball player who's 21 years old and makes it to the major leagues is going to make almost $800,000 a year. So there are some folks that have law degrees, but not that are currently playing Major League Baseball. There were some minor leaguers that had. There was a woman from the Red Sox. She's no longer with the Red Sox. Bianca Smith. She was a coach with the Red Sox, and now she's in Japan coaching. She has a law degree. Don Clendenin, and this goes back a way, but Don Clendenin, who played for most famously the New York Mets and the Pittsburgh Pirates, when he finished his career, he went to law school, and then he went to North Dakota, where he practiced helping out individuals that had mental health issues and drug issues, and so, but there are not that many. There are some people in Epstein that are in the front offices and things like that. But I'm not sure. As far as a baseball player getting in the Hall of Fame right now, I'm not aware of anyone that Mo Berg comes to mind, but I don't think he's going to get in. He's got a. For any of you, probably know the Mo Berg story, but there's some Sabres written about them. There's a couple of great documentaries about him. There's a great book or two about him. One is called "The Catcher Was a Spy." I forget who wrote it, but it's a really good read. Incredible man, was a genius. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? I'm happy to answer them as well.
Yeah, were there any players from the Negro leagues that became attorneys?
None that rose to our attention. There may be some, and that's a great question, Michael. That's some research that I really need to do to kind of round out things here. But none that are in the Hall of Fame.
Does the Hall of Fame have a category that will allow a lawyer to get into the Hall of Fame as a lawyer?
Well, that's a good. So Joseph, the category is, and we have executives in the Hall of Fame. Branch Rickey, O'Malley. So they're recognized for their work. But how did they get there? Well, it was probably their law degree that got them there. Now, there's a person. Here's the trivia question. All right, who is in the Ford Frick wing of the Hall of Fame? That's an attorney. There is a member of the Ford Frick wing that's not the Hall of Fame, but was an attorney. Right? So can I give you a hint? All right. This person graduated from the University of Alabama. All right. His original last name was Israel. He broadcast for New York teams.
Red Barber?
Yep.
Close. But no, Red Barber. So the history of Red Barber, I'm a University of Florida journalism school graduate. Red Barber graduated from the University of Florida Journalism School. But this Red Barber served as a mentor to this member of the Hall of Fame, the Ford Frick.
Was it Mel Allen?
Correct. That's absolutely right, Michael. It was Mel Allen. There you go. Ding, 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 ding. All right. Trivia answer. Very good. Mel Allen.
Once you said Alabama, Mel Allen immediately came to mind.
That's it. Mel Allen. That was the one. Didn't practice law.
Right.
Red Barber was his mentor. And yes, absolutely. Correct. Excellent. Excellent. It's not even a guess. It's a good knowledge. Good knowledge. Yeah. So any other questions?
Anybody else?
Well, Scott Boras, not only is he an agent, which means he's an attorney, but he also was in the minor leagues with the Cubs and the St. Louis Cardinals, correct?
Here's the thing about as an agent, there aren't any agents in the Hall of Fame. And remember who has to vote them in. Yeah. So I don't know if the baseball writers will vote them in because they're not eligible. So are the executives going to vote them in? I don't know. Some people. Marvin Miller, a couple of people after the book came out said, well, you missed Marvin Miller. How could you miss Marvin Miller? Why isn't he in your book? Marvin Miller was not an attorney. Marvin Miller was a union executive and ran the automobile industry in Detroit. And he used although he wasn't a lawyer, an interesting story about Marvin Miller, if I have a second, he replaced a guy by the name of Robert Cannon, who was a judge. Major League Baseball picked the union president, and the players quickly realized that this isn't right. Why is Major League Baseball picking our union president? We're going to go out and pick our own president. And they thanked Judge Cannon, and then they picked Marvin Miller.
Interesting.
So I'm trying to get Art Shamsky to write a book on that. Art's become a friend over the years. He's written 3 really nice books. The last one he wrote is called Met Stories I Only Tell My Friends. But he was part of the group of players that helped select Marvin Miller. And I keep saying to him, Art, you should write this next book and you should call it Marvin and Me and talk about the history of unions and how it came to be. But I don't know if he's going to do that. It would be an interesting book.
Anything else, guys? Comments, questions? All right, you should have your Baltimore Chop in your email or your SABR tool for reading at your leisure. So appreciate the time, Lou.
Thank you so much, Peter. Really appreciate it. And if you're interested, the book is available on Amazon at a discount. You can get it from McFarland, but it's a bigger discount from Amazon, and they don't mind me saying that. So it's on Amazon for a discount. And if you're a Kindle person, it's even less than the book, and you can get it instantly. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can have the book probably sitting in your house sometime tomorrow. So I really appreciate you letting me come aboard today, talking to your members, and it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you all very much, ladies and gentlemen. It really was a lot of fun.
Well,
All right,
thank you
guys.
for being here.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Hopefully we'll see you soon and see
Thank
some of
you.
you guys hopefully in person and come Cleveland.
Okay.
All right. Thank
Good
you.
night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks again, Peter.
No problem. Take care, Lou.
All right. Be well.